Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second session of our webinar series, Permaculture Solutions for Climate Change. We are focusing on water management and resilience in this series. This is a collaborative effort between Permatil Timor-Leste, Permatil Global, and the Permaculture Association of Britain. The idea of these webinars, for those ones who couldn't join us last time, we know that there might be some new participants today. The idea came through requests that we received from communities across the world. One of the topics that is common and comes through several requests from different parts of the world is about water solutions and how through permaculture, using permaculture techniques, how they can address, how communities can address issues, water issues. So yeah, then we had a conversation, and there was an event organized by Permatil Global, and they were sharing their experiences with communities in Timor-Leste. So we thought to create this series of webinars to share those experiences and explore a bit more, and give as well the opportunity to communities across the world to talk with members of the team in Timor-Leste, and as well Permatil Global in Australia. So a huge thanks to our partners in this journey. We are learning together about these events, and hopefully we will have new events in the future. And thank you so much to as well the team at the Permaculture Association. They have been really helpful and supportive. In today's session, we are going to focus on design, implementation, and maintenance. We will be learning key aspects of design and maintenance of water catchment systems based on Timor-Leste community's successful experience. And I think I will stop there. And I have to say we have had to change a bit the plan. So originally, Igo, Lemus, and Iso Pereira will be joining this session, but unfortunately they couldn't. They sent apologies. But we will be again with Lachlan McKenzie, who is the co-founder of Permaculture Global, based in Australia, and co-author of the original Permaculture Guidebook. Lachlan has a vast background in permaculture education, spanning regions from Timor-Leste to Europe.
I'll have a look again in a minute. I can't find.
And our tech support today is provided by Andy Goldrain, Chief Executive of the Permaculture Association. So now I'm going to start with a video, and then Lachlan is going to give us a bit of introduction to the topic, and then we will have a conversation. So I will be having a conversation with Lachlan through the event. So I'm just going to share the video.
Have James Palmer, who is an Australian volunteer who's been working directly with Permatil in Timor-Leste on the water restoration projects, and he'll be hopefully joining, as long as his internet holds up, to help also provide some answers, which will be great. So the video that hopefully we can see later is just showing some of the ideas around the technical implementation of the water restoration projects. It looks like maybe we've finally got the Dili office of Permatil has just been admitted. I'm not sure, Maria, if you can see if they're able to join the screen. So maybe the internet is picking up. One thing I'd like to say at the moment is, first of all, is that the projects are focused on getting water back into the aquifers. So using really simple, low-cost locally led techniques around good water catchment using permaculture design and principles, which gets the water to basically stored and then slowed and then absorbed into the ground, so that then it can also be held in small aquifers, small reservoirs, sorry, to also help to absorb more water. And then this water is then replenishing the aquifers. So far, Permatil have they've embarked on over 700 projects across Timor, and over 500 natural springs have come back to full replenishment. So they're working again as they traditionally have. So I think that's a huge achievement in terms of getting water back to the communities using techniques which the communities can implement themselves, and working with the communities on the design and the implementation of these projects. It's also very relevant in, so Timor's a very mountainous country, but it's also very relevant in plateau lands, because the techniques are the same. Maybe the way that the water is gathered might be different. It might be from a well or from underground on the flatlands, but the techniques are the same: to catch the water using simple techniques, to store it, to let it absorb back into the ground where it naturally goes, and to use replanting and revegetation techniques to then cure the land and also help to catch more of the water in the vegetation. Can I ask if the Permatil Dili office can hear me?
Well,
And if they're able to...
I mean, it's come off mute because I can't make them a speaker if they are on mute.
I will just have a quick look. Aha! Here we go.
It's actually a public holiday here in Dili today, so it's just me and Sebas and Alex in the Dili office today, and I think James is getting in. So it's a quiet day in the office.
Yeah.
I think Izu was going
Thank you for joining.
But yeah.
So we've just started, and we've just been talking a little bit about an introduction to the concept, and I think we should, Andy, should we try the video once more and see if it plays?
Andy, I can try the video now. I think.
Why doesn't? Yeah, let's get Maria trying it because it's not working on my system.
Yeah, I think it's working on this side. Let's see. So I'm gonna share the screen. Share screen.
As you see in front of me, is not here before, but because of the we dig the reservoir on top of the hill, and it's create more moisture, so that's why the firm is grow by itself, and it's very healthy. It shows that the water underneath.
I have a big hard drive. I've got lots of TV, so when I want to watch something live.
I think we are well into paranormal.
Erosion, big erosion here, and you see only dirt. But after we build this retention pond, after we build this retention pond now, the fern come back and then cover up all of this area. And down below, there's new spring just appear. So this one of the practical sites for sloping agricultural and technology.
All around the place.
So still catching water, but also for food production.
Yeah, this is for catching water here, and then for vegetable garden. Ho, 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 Timor. Ho, ho, how near Ho, 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 oh, Timor. Ho, 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 Timor. Ho, ho, how near Ho, 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 oh, Timor. Loro sotto loro moru, da si freddo tata su mare, e manara, Timor loro sai. La ya firaku, la ya kalari, ita mesa Timor ane, nebe amutu, hari Timor loro sai. Ho, 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 Timor. Ho, ho, how near Ho, 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 oh, Timor. Ho, 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 Timor. Ho, ho, how near Ho, 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 oh, Timor. Timor. Oh, oh, how near Oh, 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 Timor. Oh, 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 Timor. Oh, oh, how near Oh, 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 Timor. Mata mutu kareba oi, hori hari Timor fogida baita o beo ansira.
Can I hear you?
Thank you. We did get through it. It was a bit slow, but it did show a lot of the different techniques, and it also showed how most of the work is done by hand and to great effect. So I'd like to see, hopefully James is still with us, and Sabah is with us as well, and Luke. So I can also help to answer some of the questions, but I thought a series of questions just around the process that Permatil uses and the types of techniques it uses would be good. And I've got some photos I can show as well as we're going through to help to describe, which maybe you can talk. So the first question is around how do you choose the site for where to do the water catchments and the springs that you want to protect? So what's the process for the choice of the location with the community? Sabah and Luke, are you with us, or you're on mute at the moment?
Do you feel like?
Oh, Sabas, sorry. Are you there?
Was the question?
Thank you.
Oh, Sabas, sorry.
Yeah, the location is based on the combination of environmental, community needs, and accessibility. Factors like land slope, soil type, proximity to natural water sources, and vulnerability to erosion guide decision. Areas with the high demand for the water or recurring issue of water scarcity may also prioritize. Thank you.
That's good. James, do you have any more to add to that one, or? So
James doesn't seem to have any sound.
Is that working?
Oh,
Getting anything?
now. Great.
Yes,
the internet's
yes.
been terrible today.
Go for it, James.
Yes, you're there now.
Cool. Can you quickly repeat the question? Sorry.
Just about the choice of location for the water catchment projects.
Well, so the first part of the choice is looking at areas of need, communities that come through our networks that are looking for water restoration, that are having problems with water, particularly towards the end of the dry season. So that's broadly where we will target. Look for support and funding through that method. And then more particularly in the watershed, we look at for areas of high erosion, areas that are highly degraded, and look to implement the different techniques there. And then lastly, the water retention ponds. The word that we use in Teton is debu. And a debu is a water buffalo pond. And so there used to be a lot of water buffaloes in Timor, and there's a lot less now. And so communities will often direct us to where there used to be water retention ponds. And that will help inform kind of that natural solution, because there's obviously a connection between the infiltration in those old ponds, and yeah, we'll plan it around some of the older landscapes that existed.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, that's what it comes down to, is working with the community and then identifying what the community needs, but then also working out exactly where to start the process. And good water catchment management always starts at the top. And interestingly, traditionally in Timor, a lot of these debuns, the buffalo ponds, were often at the top of the water catchment. So it's interesting that modern water catchment technique is very, very much the same as the traditional water catchment techniques. I'm going to try and share my screen now, and we can show some photos of different techniques that have been used in Timor. Maybe Sabas and James, you can help to explain the photos as we go through them.
Sure thing.
So people can see this. Right.
Yep, your screen is
I
visible.
will go to full screen. Somewhere. Sorry, we'll get there.
Down a bit.
Ah, there it is. Thank you. So this is not a Permatil project. I thought I would start with what is a huge dam which cost millions of dollars, which was done by large organizations and the government, and it basically covered a huge river in the Akusi region, and the dam was built like to a huge cost and expense to supposedly provide water on an ongoing basis. After 2 years, you can see that most of the dam has silted up, and it's actually now causing flooding problems. So this is more conventional, large-scale operations which are just not working and not feasible. And so from that, we go to what is a much smaller scale and at an absolute fraction of the price. So this is a Devon at Lakufoan in the Akusi sub-district. It's right up the top of the catchment. And it doesn't look like it actually holds much, but this actually can catch hundreds of thousands of litres of water in one season. Sebas, do you want to talk a bit more about the water catchments, the Devons at the top of the catchment that you do?
So this here is in Akusi, in the eastern part, the enclave of Timor. And this was one of the areas that the community said used to be a buffalo pond. And so that was our first point of call, was to kind of re-dig it out and open it up as a...
James has dropped out, unfortunately.
Water generation site.
Sebas, can you explain the technique, how you go about creating these Devons?
Lockie's just asking to explain how the deku works. Yeah, so essentially, as James is saying, this is was identified as one of the areas where water buffalo used to congregate and create this kind of natural infiltration point. And so it was a matter of identifying that with the community and then essentially hand digging with this area that serves as a point higher up in the landscape that the water during the wet season will fill up and it will slowly infiltrate back into the soil, leading to, I guess a higher soil moisture content in the landscape. So instead of water just simply running off the landscape, they instead slowly moving through the soil into groundwater aquifers. And then this then leads down into, will eventually lead down into some of the springs in the landscape and things, so that water's being held onto the landscape rather than simply running off the landscape and leading to further erosion and things. So yeah, just about at the top of the landscape, slowing that water movement, leading to water infiltration into the ground rather than immediately off the ground. And so yeah, that's done in across several different points, but this is one of those kind of natural larger retention ponds that were identified as an area where water did congregate previously that is now being lost. So
thank you, Luke. That was great. I will try the next one, see how we go with this. Are we getting this one now? Maybe just like because of time,
like crater. Yeah, just
might go through a little bit quicker. Just to say that there are a lot of different types depending. So the large ones at the top are often followed by smaller ones, often built by hand, but sometimes with the help of some machinery. and they tend to follow the catchments down the hill. So again, placed so that when the water is running down, it doesn't get to a point where it's too fast. It can actually hold the water. And if you can imagine a 10 by 10 meter by 1 meter deep reservoir, and there are 20 rain events per year, that could catch 200,000 litres of water just in one small reservoir. I would also like to say at this point that if people have questions they would like to ask about these techniques, then to please add those questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end. Can people see the next photo okay?
Yes. Yes, Ken.
Right.
It's just a black screen for us, Lockie, but that might be our internet.
Okay. So this is a terraced reservoir or pond, with the idea being that it's much better for aquaculture because the different levels provide different habitats for fish. So this will eventually hopefully be used for aquaculture when the bottom is sealed properly, and it's also easier for growing plants around the edges, productive plants. Is there anything you want to add, James? Can you see the new slide, and is there anything you would like to add?
So I think this looks like the one in Dare, and effectively there's probably like 20 of these infiltration ponds. So this would be one of the highest ones. And they kind of follow all the way down through the contours, just slowing the water down, capturing the water and letting it re-infiltrate into the groundwater.
So that's another shot from the Dare site to show the different catchments going down the hill. This is an illustration from the Tropical Permaculture Guidebook, and it's showing the A-frame, or the bingkaya, as it's known in Indonesian. What do we call it now in Timor, in Tetum? Luke, you're on mute.
We're not actually sure. Sebastian and I aren't actually sure what it's called in Tetum. We are only familiar with the Indonesian name. That's kind of what's used here, but I'm not sure if you...
We did see this in the film. Sebas, can you explain what it is and how we use this simple device?
You know how to explain how the A-frame is used?
The A-frame is used, we want to know the contour of the land. This is we build a frame from the wood, and we want to know the land slope, and also how to know the contour of the land, and make sure we measure the land level, and when the land level is ready, we will dig terracing so that.
Good. Mau mettermi English, Mattia. Obrigado.
English
So it is a very simple device to measure the contour of the land, which can be done anywhere, and it helps to make sure that all the work is done on level, so that we're not getting water in the wet season running and causing big problems from running in the wrong direction or building up where it shouldn't. Can be used, made from bamboo or wood or and a piece of string and a rock even. So it's very easy and simple and very simple to use as well. Then this is an example of getting the contour in illustrated form. And then in visual form, these are some of the contours that have been dug in Timor to either create terraces or just simply to a contour dug into the hillside. On the right-hand side, it's really difficult soil to dig. That's in the Akusi district. And so simply just digging the trench will hold that water and slow it down and help it to absorb. Every one of the main mottos for this work is every little bit helps. So every bit of water that we can catch, and you can see already how the grass is growing. It actually helps to really regenerate the ecosystem naturally as well, just by creating that moisture absorption point in the land. These are the same terraces from the wider perspective. They've all been planted out. So this is near the village. They've all been planted out with pineapples, and there'll be other small trees, fruit production and food production plants, vegetables planted to make use of the extra water. So that's a double or multifunctional use. It's putting water back into the ground for the natural springs, but also getting extra food production from it. What I'm showing now, Sebas, is techniques that were used. So on one side is an illustration from the guidebook. On the other side is there were demonstrations from a PermaYouth camp in Akusi, in Lachlan. And they were just simply put in the landscape to show how when you do a small thing and you can slow and stop the water, then all of a sudden you create a place where plants can grow and the trees, seedlings, trees can grow. And then over time that will create its own catchment spaces. So you're allowing nature to do its own restoration just by simple interventions. So it's also called, Permatil call it a check dam. James or Sebas, do you want to talk a little bit more about the check dams that are used in rivers to slow the water down as it runs down the river and what that impact is?
Yeah, so Timor's quite steep mountainous terrain. So part of the reason for check dams is, again, to slow down the water, but it allows all the native life, whether it's frogs, whether it's eels, other kinds of animals, to kind of come back and help restore the ecosystem in that way. It can, like the first season might just be about slowing the water down, letting the banks regrow through that season, but then over time it'll become a longer lasting river with more diversity, with animals that are coming back into that ecosystem. And then the flow-on effects of that kind of almost unquantifiable. It'll bring back the bird life, and the bird life will then slowly regenerate through spreading seeds and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the first point, is those big steep channels, if you can slow that water down, because in the winter,
it also has an impact by positive impact on the reefs and the oceans, because you don't get the runoff into the ocean that would normally happen. It's really important to be aware of how much water is going down and to make sure that either you do allow for some of the water to flow through so that you're not creating too much pressure points, or that you are creating it so that it can hold and sink through. So the different types of check dams will depend on the different situations. Here is another version, which was done with gabions. So this was to stop, there was water going, basically flooding the roads. So this was actually funded by the Dili, the government public works. But they've created the spot in the middle where the water can actually flow through, and the water, some of the water will go through the rocks, but most of it will be held. And very quickly the vegetation will grow back where before it was just completely eroded. In the first video, Ego was also talking about how the ferns have very quickly come back and are providing the natural cover in areas where the ferns haven't grown for years, and given the right circumstance, all of a sudden they're growing back. This photo is around a natural spring on Atauro Island, and the fence is to stop the animals from getting in and damaging the spring. They've done a lot of planting of plants around the spring, which won't take too much water, but will help to hold the land. And then further up, they've done a lot of water catchment and check dams up through the rivers. And now this spring, where we're standing, is actually flowing again to full effect. And down from that spring, we have the water tank, which has been built. So the water is gravity fed down through to the tank so that it's easy access for the community, and so that that spring doesn't have the volume of people coming up. There's also access for animals to still get the drinking water outside of the fenced area so that the animals still get the water, but they're not interfering or damaging the spring area. Then below the tank, they've planted lots of bananas, which will absorb all of the water which has run off from the tank. So they're making use of that overflow water from the tank when it's used as well.
We were actually on a tour last weekend, and that exact site that you're showing on the screen with the tank in it, that fenced in area is completely overrun and green and beautiful. Not sure when you took the photo, but
this was only
it's a little oasis.
2 months ago or 3 months ago. So,
well, yeah, it's completely full and green with papaya, bananas, all sorts of things.
Right.
Quick question, Lachlan. Can I just ask?
Yeah.
There's a few kind of questions coming up in the chat, and if any members of the team can have a look at those and answer them as we go, that would be great. Just
okay, so I've stopped sharing my screen now so I can have a look at the questions. Have you put them into that document?
Yeah, they're at the end. Maybe Maria can ask them.
At the end.
Lachlan, do you want me to go through them?
That's okay. I'm able to look. That's thank you. So one of the first questions was about again where the physical location of the reservoirs. How do you choose the actual physical location in the watershed for the different reservoirs?
So the first point is based on the community's knowledge of previous ponds that used to exist, whether they were the buffalo ponds or other ponds. So we would use their knowledge to build around those areas, and then it's kind of following the channels of water, particularly where big erosion channels appear, trying to do it a bit further up from those erosion channels, and then in the channels build.
Yeah. So the next question is also exactly the same as one of the questions I was going to ask, which is great. And it's around, how does Permatil work with the communities? So what do the communities contribute to the projects? What does Permatil and PermaYouth contribute? How do the communities support and work on the projects themselves?
Permatil and PermaYouth typically provide the expertise, initial materials and training, while the community contribute time, local knowledge, and labor. After implementation, the community usually take responsibility for ongoing maintenance and monitoring, with occasional follow-up from Permatil and PermaYouth.
James, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Cut out there again.
That's okay. So within a project, what do the community contribute to it, and what do Permatil or PermaYouth contribute to it?
Yeah, I mean, as Seba said, the community knowledge and the person power and that kind of thing, they're the key parts. It's their springs that are being rejuvenated, and if we can give them the resources to start up, that's where it all flows from.
And importantly, who provides the food when people are doing all this hard work? So I do know that often it's shared action by the community to actually also provide some of the food. Maybe Permatil will help to provide a small budget, but I also know that on some of the projects, the community actually grow the trees that then get planted out later on. Do you want to talk a bit about when you plant trees around the project sites and what types of trees you plant, or other plants?
So the trees being the question was around what types of plants and trees that Permatil and communities use.
Yes, what types, and when do you plant once the reservoirs or trenches or swales have been made? When is the planting process?
It's about understanding the question.
The old English tetum, and Mamhahusu kanaba banhira kuda ihon, depois reservoir completo, banhira kuda ihon no tipo ihon nebe kuda. Pwede explica isso, one?
Yeah. Ita kuda iwan depois de ita criar reservoir, né? Ibu iwan sernebem kita kuda maka iwan sa milik konserva be, maka ai siramesan boro ai kia buah hali no sir.
Okay. So I might need your help, James, with a few of those types, but the answer revolved around choosing trees which are not going to take too much water. Some trees that are planted will take a lot of the water and then end up with problems. So choosing the right trees is very important, and also the time when the trees are planted, obviously at the beginning of the wet season when the soil is wet is also very important. James, have you got any more to add to that one?
So Permatil's kind of, so what Sebas said is completely right, but yeah, so there's a series of criteria that Permatil think about in terms of the types of plants. So it's about very much about that. Okay, you're not planting things that are going to use lots of water, but you're planting things that have a food or a burning wood use, so some type of use to people whenever possible, or some type of, it's also a type of plant that's going to provide habitat for the local environment, or it's going to have soil holding capacity to be able to hold soil in, so it's going to be working well with erosion and things like that. It's plants that are ideally native, or if not native, non-invasive plants that won't take over the landscape. So there's a whole series of these things that, or even plants that are good at capturing pollutants in the soil, or good carbon stores. So yeah, Permatil have a series of these properties, but yeah, definitely things that are good at holding soil together and not using a lot of water, but also thinking about the uses for the community as well as for the providing habitat for that ongoing, we're trying to get that cycle back into the landscape.
Yeah.
So not planting a monoculture essentially is really important in Permatil's way of planting.
Yeah, no, great. So there's another question which we did cover a bit last week, but it's a very important question. And when we're looking at the land, it's often a big scale, and there are often different land owners and landholders throughout what is one project. And I don't know if James is still on. He could probably answer this one a bit easier in terms of how Permatil deals with different, doing one project that crosses over different landowners, potentially private and public landowners as well. Don't know if James is on board.
Otherwise, you can ask the question to Sebastian Tettel again. I'm not going to be able to answer that one.
I think if you know the answer, Lachlan, you answer it, because James
so it's a difficult one to translate, that one. So Permatil will, first of all, the community engagement is so important, because going into the community and actually getting people to understand what the projects are, getting all the different stakeholders to understand what the outcomes are and the process and how to go about it. And often that will help to smooth any issues. So trying to get any issues out and solved before the project starts is just so important. Sometimes there's been projects where some of the landowners just refuse to have reservoirs dug on their land, and that is Permatil don't tend to push it too much. They just work with the landowners that are happy to be a part of the project. And then often after a year or two, those who are initially resistant see the benefits and will jump on board, because the benefits are not just for the whole community, but individually on the land where the terraces and the swales and the reservoirs are dug. That land changes very quickly and holds a lot more water very quickly. So it's a slow process, but that community engagement and community ownership of the program from the very beginning is just such an important part of short and medium and long-term success. What else did we want to?
It's 8:02, Should we?
So we're almost over time already.
Yeah.
James, are you with us?
Yep, I've turned my video off. It's not working.
Are you just as we finish up, are you able, just from your monitoring point of view, able to give a bit of detail of the results so far from the actual the water catchment work you've been doing with University of New South Wales?
Yeah, so in the last year and a half, we've been able to take GPS locations and volumes of all the ponds, the terracing, and the water barriers. And through this, the university's helped us use these locations and some control locations.
You've dropped out there, James.
Lachlan, maybe we just need to pick this up next session.
Yeah.
I think we've just had so many technical problems today. Maybe we should just cut our losses and bring this monitoring and evaluation into the next session.
Yeah.
Indeed. There was a question on aquaculture as well, and that one is perfect for the next session as well. So please, the next session is all about, once the community has a water supply that is regular and that they can depend on, then what are the uses that a community can put that to? I mean, obviously the first one is having clean and fresh water for their own drinking and household use, but there's so many other things that become available in terms of land use and food production and livelihoods that can be built on, and that's what we'll be focusing on next week. We're also, since today was such a difficult experience, both with the internet generally and with the connections with Timor, I'd like to thank everyone a lot for your patience and hopefully for sticking it out, for getting something from it. But we're also happy to answer questions next week on the technical side of things, which maybe didn't get answered this week just because of all the issues we've had. So I hope you've all gained something from it. From our point of view, it's been great to try and present some of the amazing work that is going on in Timor. So maybe I can hand it back to Maria to close the session for today. Thank you all.
Thank you. I think you have mentioned everything what I was going to say. Just a huge thanks to you, James, Sebastian in Timor-Leste in the office at Dili, and everyone who has been behind supporting this event. And yeah, amazing to learn about the experiences of communities in Timor-Leste and the different techniques used. I think it was really insightful today's session. We will be sharing the recordings. I think we have seen some comments, people who couldn't attend the previous session. And yes, we have had really bad internet today. The connection wasn't great. So hopefully we will be trying next week to see how could we improve that, or maybe rethink how we can deliver these events in the future. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I don't want to take more of your time. Yeah, we will follow up with an email and we will share the links. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.